Okay, everybody, we are going to have some fun on this video. This is going to be a longer video, so I hope you are strapped in your seat. You got some popcorn and a caffeine-free Diet Coke because we are going to get rolling here, people. This is the 5th video in the series for the Takt Production System for students. This is a free course for universities specifically. And in this video, we're going to cover macro-level takt planning. Now, before we begin, let me make a point. The content in this presentation is mainly going to center around the book. So you'll see like this page, for instance, is page 5, and you'll see that these are formatted in 8.5 by 11. Yeah, 8.5 by 11 size sheets, and it's because it's coming directly from the book. Do you have to buy the book? No. We're going to put it right here for you for free, but should you buy the book? Probably. We've driven the price down as far as we can. It's still a bit expensive because it's in color, but this is going to change your career. The other thing in addition to the book is I want you to get used to using the template. So by the time this video comes out, we will have a new template uploaded that you can use, and you can do everything that I'm talking about. Let me go ahead and scroll over here. You see I'm in this Excel file, super cool stuff. Everything's in here, and we're going to be using this for our assignment. So, super awesome. We're going to get going here. I couldn't be more excited about this. I've been preparing for it for a long time. Let me introduce you in this way. The Takt Production System Takt Planning component has programs and projects, milestones which set the start and the end, phases which are groupings of zones, and within the phases and zones, we have trains of trades that have their own unique takt times, and then everything complies with production laws, has buffers, interconnections, independent activities, and a path of critical flow, and then interface with the last planners. But, and I'm so glad this image allows me to do this, in this video I'm only going to cover programs, milestones, phases, zones, takt time, trains, and trade flow as it relates to macro-level takt plans. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I'm on the Miro board that you'll be able to use. University professors or teachers or companies, hey, please copy this Miro board. Allow your people to do these experiments and activities with the calculator. They'll have a great time. So a macro-level takt plan is one of my favorite things. It's on a 5-day takt time, so you can see this up at the top. And, hey, let me answer the question. Is a 5-day takt time like scientific? No, but most of the world is used to time within weeks and the amount of work that you can get done within that. Milestones, and then we have these phases of work, and they all link together, and it's beautiful, and it runs all the way over here to substantial completion. This is an A3 for your schedule, and it is a strategic plan. I'll tell you why that matters to me here in a minute. Let me talk to you about how we set the plan or the deal. I think you're going to like this. If you don't, please don't tell me. You're going to hurt my feelings. Anyway, your macro-level takt plan, when done properly, constitutes your contractual promise. That means it is your slowest reasonable speed plus your risk analysis, meaning that you must account for risks in here, and your reference class according to the book How Big Things Get Done, where they talk about using historical projects from a budget and schedule standpoint and making sure that your current project falls within those same parameters. Don't think you're different or unique. Your norm level takt plan is your production plan, your tactical plan, whereas your macro level takt plan is your strategic plan. This is where you actually plan it with the right number of zones. You gain buffers, and let me say you always have to have buffers in a production plan. This is your optimized or faster speed. It has your risk mitigation strategies, which means you're trying to not let them happen. And your reference class mitigation strategies, meaning in the past, if some project experienced a delay and you're able to prevent it here, do it. And this is the one that has buffers. This is your production target. So strategic, tactical. This is super important to know, and this sets up our deal. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on in this video, but let me first tell you that we go from the macro to the norm because we have Kevin Rice's calculator that's built off of the work of Marco Biniger and Janos Louis. So the bottom line is you type in your takt wagons up here, your takt zones on your fixed, since you're in the macro 5-day takt time. And then the calculator does a good job of saying this is where you are and this is when you're going to finish at 95 days. And we're going to choose 11, and that means that your new zoning strategy puts you at 75. So this calculator allows you to then identify what zone sizes you truly have, which is remarkable because unlike how the industry teaches it right now, by the way, this is just not the way to do it, is they teach you to pull plan the entire building or the entire floor. No, you should be doing it zone by zone and creating that pull plan in one right-sized batch area. Now that batch area then becomes a sequence in your cascaded sequences within your work packaging effort. Essentially, you can pretty much assume that a pull plan is a single sequence or sequence within a zone in a takt plan, and that multiple sequences or the takt plan itself is simply many pull plans cascaded on top of each other. It's really quite genius. And then from this work packaging effort, knowing that we have flow in the individual task level, we're able to actually create a norm level production plan. If you're like, Jay Money, he's super good looking and I love him, but he's not explaining this as he goes, these are for future videos. The point of this is that as soon as you have your norm level production plan, then you can literally filter out your 6-week look ahead, make adjustments, and find and remove roadblocks. And you can filter out your weekly work plan and make commitments, which then dictates your handoffs, which is an indicator of flow. Then the actual deliverable that's printed out are these look aheads and weekly work plans. So one thing that I'd like to show you here, I think these are beautiful. By the way, it's not necessarily a part of today's training, but I want you to know that the macro level takt plan is the start, and the finish is that you're able to use the look ahead and the weekly work plan with their associated logistics plans, with their associated zone maps for zone control and daily work planning in the field with the foreman. So this is absolutely genius, and this is the purpose of it. Now, I went ahead and created some neat points here of why it's important to do a macro level takt plan. Not everybody in the industry buys into this. Number one, it helps you establish your overall duration. It confirms your budget because now you know what your GCs and GRs are. You onboard your builders to the single-page strategic plan. You're able to align long lead procurement. This enables your fresh eyes so you can make sure that you review it properly. You're able to look at strategy, and it makes sure that the project team has enough of a detail to involve trades. And here's the most important part. If you have a macro, then you don't have to stress about doing a number of pull plans all at once. You really can just focus and then work phase by phase for the norm. These will come in and become much more clear as we go along. Now let me go ahead and head into the book sections, which I think you're really going to love. So let me use my little handy dandy markers over here, and I'm going to take you through some concepts. This is page number 17 in the book, brand new, beautiful content. Hope you love it. To start, I want you to know that a program, which is in essence a combination of other projects, is not where you start. You want to start in what's called a project master takt plan, or your macro level takt plan. You can get into the phases later. This is where you do the detailed work, right? And this is what it looks like. Your program master schedule will summarize all the projects and allow your core or executive team to know how the work is all tying together and progressing. This takt plan will govern your overall project. Then, when we're on a production level, the assistant superintendents, assistant PMs, assistant PEs, FEs, and foremen will work on a production level inside the phase level takt plans or the norm level takt plans. When you start on the project level, you first need to start with milestones. Now, I'm not going to cover everything in this video because then it's just like I'm reading the book. But the bottom line is you can either start with a milestone and also have an end milestone, otherwise known as a stipulated end date, or you can just have a start milestone and then through the process of doing your takt planning, figure out how long the project actually takes. Either way, it's super fine with me, but I need you to start out having a start milestone, and I need you to start out, at least once you're done with your macro, knowing what your end milestone is going to be. So you can do it either way. You can find out what your end milestone should be, or you can fit within it. Those are two very logical strategies. Once you know your milestones, now it's time to identify your phases. So phases are interesting, and I need you to really pay attention here. So professor, if anybody's on their phone or texting or falling asleep, now's the time to wake them up. Okay? Phases have unique zones, and those zones are unique to the phase. Okay? It's not so much timeline, it's scope and path of work. So phases are groupings of zones. And you'll see that because again, oh, this is so good. Program, then you have your projects. Maybe you have projects A through G, right? Functional areas, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Inside those functional areas, you have zones. That's your production level area. And those zones, those unique zones, make up your phases. And interestingly enough, when you're looking at your takt plan, macro is looking at it high level, norm is looking at it day by day, and micro is looking at it hour or minute. I explained that in the first video, but I wanted to share that with you in the book and here as well. So let's go ahead and dig deeper into the phases. If you're going to go ahead and identify your phases on page 23, you've got to understand, hey, there's the roof phase, there's the exterior phase, there's the structural phase. I could keep going, but here's the bottom line. Let's go ahead and take exterior as an example, all right? Exterior has its own unique zones. Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3. Let me just go around. You go all the way up to 6, then 8, then the back side of the building, you get up to, I don't really math, but by the time you're done at the end, you get to 16. Those are unique to the exterior phase, okay? They are not unique to the structure phase or the roof or the interiors. They are not the same thing. These zones are unique to this phase, and that's what makes it a phase. In your production plan, or in your macro-level takt plan specifically, you'll have different phases, and then you'll see them marked on the left, and it'll show your phase. Then your print area is actually called an area, and then your zones over here to the left. This phase, let's say the exterior, have their own unique zones, 1000%, okay? And so what you have to do is to identify your phases, identify large groups of work, ask if it has its own path for its own train of trades, if it ties to other phases, and if it has its own type of flow or flow of work. And so phases are the next thing that we must identify in our overall production plan. Now let's come over here. One thing that I've added in the book since its initial publishing, by the way, the book Takt Planning just came out. As you can see, all brand new visuals. We've gone through it over and over, added all of the feedback that we got from the industry. It's remarkable. One thing is functional areas, okay? Here, I'm just going to go over here to the right. So typically on a single project, you'll have a team weekly tactical where you balance the team, a strategic planning and procurement meeting where you look at the strategy or macro level takt plan with procurement, and then your trade partner weekly tactical handles your look aheads and your weekly work plans. The foreman huddle plans the next day, worker huddle communicates the plan for the next day, your crew preparation huddles are where the foreman actually talks to their own crew, and then zone control walks is where the supers and foremen make sure that they're flowing. And then you have the team daily huddle where we remove roadblocks. Those are not too many meetings, and they have a very specific purpose, and this is the bare minimum of what we must have, okay? You can scale this up or down based on your needs, but my point here is if you have a large project, then you must have multiple functional areas. That means their own meetings and foremen. Own meetings and format. You cannot take a $1 billion project and have just one trade partner weekly tactical or afternoon and morning huddle or crew pep huddles or zone walks. You will burn out, you will stop talking about the right things, and you will literally spiral the project into chaos. On big jobs, the message is like a $1 billion project is nothing more than 4 to 10 smaller projects with their own autonomous teams and format. We've got to start doing that. Okay, that's just a little sidebar here for us. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about zones. Zones, I know that airlines use the word zones. I know, I'm not going to go through all of them, but the word zones is everywhere. We're using it in construction because it is the base production unit. And so when I talk about zone, you see this is zone 2A. That will have a sequence of work in it. We have to understand the size of those zones. And I know I'm going fast because the main point of this activity is for you to experiment. And then you can go back and look at these pages, free pages on the Miro board and check them out or buy the book. Okay? Let's start by taking this project. It's a medical office building in Phoenix, Arizona. It's already built, obviously. The building features are listed here. I won't go through them. The bottom line is you need to understand the structure. You don't really need to know much more about the building. A lot of times people will say, hey, J Money, I love you, homie. Like, give me the full set of plans. No, 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 no. I need everybody to learn how to do macro-level takt planning early on because we create this in schematic design and early design development. I want people to get used to creating a macro-level takt plan early on as a part of the first planner system. We've got to do that. So for simplicity, let's just in this example exercise, like we teach everywhere else, use an example coming from level 2 for the building. This will simplify it down for us quite a bit. Step number 1, let's go ahead and do this. We've got to identify our observable constraints. That means the superintendent or the PM or whoever's planning, I hope it's the builder, said, oh, curtain wall is going to start here. Hey, this is our first stair on our steel order. Hey, this is some complex areas in the beginning. Oh, hey, this is where our workers will access the work. Hey, our hoist is going to be over here because it's closer to our access point. So I think that the work will flow in this direction. Constraints are physical limitations that we have to deal with. They can be optimized but not entirely removed. Now that we know the direction that work is flowing in, now we need to level, and yes, I did say level, our zone sizes by work density, not by area. And I want to give credit to Dr. Iris Tommelein for teaching us this concept. We have done it our own way here, of course, but she really is the pioneer here. We want to do what's called a work density analysis listed on page 30. And how I like to do it, which is more simple, is take level 2 and then map out your grid lines. This is basically, these little squares here are basically just the grid squares. And that allows me to get a framework. And what you'll see is these red lines transfer nicely over here to this little Excel template that I built, which created 9 blocks. So every block is essentially 10 by 10. Every grid square is essentially roughly 30 by 30. And if you have, 32-foot grids or 28, that doesn't matter. Because what you're going to do is create this neat little graph, overlay it on the plans either visually or in actuality because you're overlaying it in something like Bluebeam. And then what you'll do is you'll create scores for how dense the work is in each of those 9 blocks. Now you would say, J Money, how do I do this? Okay, to do this, you've got to study the drawings and then create your scale, which I hope you can see right here. We created our own scale. And then you'll go ahead and aggregate your scores from observation, create your work densities by column square, and adjust if needed. The bottom line is you get these numbers. Now you're probably thinking, J Money, I'm a perfectionist. I want to do this right. I really want you to help me out with this. Super fine. Not a big deal. This is, though, like taking a cannon to a gunfight. If you do this even reasonably well, you will have the right size zones. Because, and let me take you to this page first off before I take you to the activity, is that this team, and you don't have to do, by the way, professors and teachers and company leaders, you don't have to do it exactly like I'm showing you in the book, but a real team did this analysis. They said, I want 1, 2, 3 zones, and then they went into the calculator, not the calculator, the template, and actually started to adjust their zone sizes by density. And you can see over here the square foot for zone 1 that has its associated color over here was 7395. Zone number 2 was 7264. Zone number 3 was 14998. These are not equal. But if you look at the density scores, 494, 512, 493 don't look too bad. So when you look at this over here, these zones are not equal size because we don't level zones by area. We do it, yep, you said it. This isn't Dora the Explorer, but you said it, by density, by work density. So you're spot on. You're a brilliant class. I already love you. So in this Miro board, and maybe I didn't organize it the right way. I hope I did because I really do care about you all in this learning experience. Here's what I have. First of all, the instructions of what we're going to do and what you would do in your assignment. Let me go ahead and explain this right now. You have the drawings, and like I said, this is the overall site plan, and then we have the 30 by 30 roughly grid for level 2. I've also included the reflected ceiling plan to set a precedent that we also need to include the ceilings in our consideration in our interior sequences, an image of the exterior, and then isometrics, okay? So this is all good stuff in here. and this is the image down here, that we have an area for you to do your work density analysis. So here's what I'm looking for. In Miro, identify zones for level 2. So you'll come in here and probably use this little pencil function and maybe get you some red, whatever color you want, and have a builder discussion with your group and say, okay, I think this is what I want here for a zone. You can just start drawing it and be like, I think I want to break this up into a zone. Like, you're just going to have a builder conversation, and you'll be like, yeah, but there's a constraint over here. What about this? You know, Jay Money said the hoist was going to be over here. Maybe we want it to be over here on a different side. And then be like, hey, where do you want the direction to flow, and how do you want your zones to look in the building? So just general builder discussion. Let me erase that because it's just a sketch at that point. So identify how many zones you want for level 2. And basically kind of keep it, how many do you want? If you're doing this exercise, I want you to stay, for it to be takt, it can't be 1. It's got to at least have 2 zones. Probably stay under 5 zones just so you get the point of what we're trying to do here. So probably stay within 2 to 5 zones, right? But identify what you want. Follow the rule, keep them on the larger side, and then have this discussion. Okay, team, he said keep it on the larger side. Okay, so this is my 1 zone. Okay, I love that. This is my 2nd zone. The team agrees. Okay, this is the 3rd zone. The team agrees, and my direction is in this direction. But what doesn't fit into that? Okay, so, oh yeah, this stair is probably a vertical flow. Oh, this stair is probably a vertical flow. Oh my gosh, probably the elevators and bathrooms are the same way. Then somebody else chimes in. Hey, the electrical room and the comm rooms, let's do those as vertical flows, right? So horizontal flow is I'm flowing through the building horizontally. Vertical flow means that, like, actually this stair, if you break it up into the different levels, it's flowing vertically, not horizontally. And then workable backlog, we'll talk about that later. I don't need you to do that right now, other than to say, start getting the lean mentality of, are there areas that are not on the path of critical flow but can be worked on if needed. Then when you're done, or identify the square foot of each area, you'll need to know that later, the square foot for the entire floor, and then again mark the arrow for what direction that work is going to flow. Now you're going to use this mainly over here as you're drawing, but let me go ahead and tell you, when you do your zone sizes, you need to have that done right. We're going to revert over here to our work density analysis, and this is where I'm going to switch over here to our template. When you see the template, you'll click on the tab that says work density. Now over here to the right, we've given you just the typical grid outlines for this building. It's all based on this example. You're all set up. Now if you're like, hey, I don't want to do it like that, I want to overlay the building, then we have this little sketch over here for you. Not a big deal. And you can do it however you want. It's super fine. But here's the bottom line. When you come over here and you identify your zones, I want you to look at your the way you have them structured and analyze them for density. Let's just say roughly, and you can use whatever colors you want. I don't, some of you artists out there are like, Jay Money, this is just not beautiful. Let me see if I can get some, oh, that's pink. That looks nice right there. Okay, so perfect. And then I'll go ahead and highlight these right here. Okay, so let's get some colors. What color should I use? Oh, I'll use blue. That doesn't look too bad. That looks okay. Okay, so now we have our zones and those look pretty good. But here's the deal. You've got to be able to add in your work density totals, right? So whether you plug in the work density totals right here over the top and color them, or just put this down here on the bottom, however you want to do it, you need density totals. So I'll give you 2 options. You can use ours, or up here on the top, you can do your own analysis. So let me just go ahead and explain what I want you to check. Okay, if this is zone 1, because we're going from right to left, I want you to check it in the density total. So equals sum, and this is jamming right here. I'm going to go ahead and follow this blue outline and say, okay, that's part of the area, and then I'm going to include these, hit enter, and you're going to have a total there. Now I want to go to the second one, hit equals sum, and this center portion here is the zone size. Okay, perfect, so that's 536, and then I want to do equals sum, and I'm going to do the yellow zone size over here. And then I'm going to look at it. Okay, so 506, 536, 600. That doesn't look super great. So when I click on this, it'll show what's highlighted. You might be like, hey, I need to cut some of that out. Hey, over here, I might need to add this actually to zone 1, right? So you're going to start adjusting how you have the zones so that you have pretty equal work density. Okay, so that means by the time you come over here, these numbers are within plus or minus 10, right? And then once you get this adjusted to where it all looks nice, all you do is you come back over here to the board, and you can mark it on your level 2. So you would just mark these in here, and let me actually go ahead and do that. So you would be like, okay, I had to cut this out for it to be good zone density. Okay, all right, perfect. So that's it. All right, this one over here, I'm actually going to give this room over to zone 1, right? So now I have zone number 1, 2, 3. This is a vertical flow, so this will be taken out. This is a vertical flow, so this will be taken out. Vertical flow, so it's taken out. And then the stairs vertical flow taken out. Then, when you calculate your square footage for each of these and the square foot for the total based on a 30 by 30, you will have the information that you need. Now, this is going to be a bit frustrating because it's all brand new, but work with it. And here's what I want to say as we move over. When you get done, you should have a rough idea of what your zone sizes are going to be. Now, I do want to make this point. You can do the zone density later and skip it for now. But a lot of people like to identify what their zone sizes would be and get used to it now. The bottom line is you need to know how many zones you want as a guess. And so this is the point in the video where you will go to your activity, you will follow the instructions, you will use the template, and you will report back, and let me give you the conditions of satisfaction, where you literally know your zone boundaries, and you have the square footage, and you've analyzed the density, and you know how many you want. In this case, it's 1, 2, 3. Then you're done. If you're in a classroom or in a company or at a university, now's the time to break people into groups, or you can simply make sure that everybody has the right information so that they can take it home and do it as a homework assignment. Now, this is a guess. What you need to do next is quite interesting. Now, I've done this to where you can just take what we have here, or you can do it on your own. And so I have this little activity button. I want you to know inside the template, we actually have the information for every activity, meaning the duration by floor. And if you type in how many zones you want over here, it'll automatically show you what your duration is by zone. That can be accessed over here to the right where we have this tab called Activity Durations. And the bottom line for this is you need to be able to understand what your activity durations are by zone so that you can create this sheet your way by scratch. And in a minute, I'm going to give you another way to do it. So I'm not giving you a template for this specific activity right here. This one right here, you'll have to recreate in Excel or do it the way that I'm about to show you. But let me explain what I did. I took all of the activities that would fit on that floor for the interiors phase. I understood what the duration by floor was going to be. Then I said 3 zones is the number of zones I want to go with. And that gave me a duration by zone. Now, stay with me here. All I did up here was write down the 5-day takt time because that's what we are in the macro. And then I gave this column a name of takt wagons. So if this duration, remove resource, was 2 days, I wrote an X for a day and an X for a day. But that doesn't fill a 5-day takt time, so why not add final patch sealing in there with them in that wagon? They can overlap 1 day, they committed to that, and now I can add these 4 days. Now that creates a wagon. A wagon is the intersection of your takt time and your zone on the macro level specifically, and it's the amount of work that you can fit in those parameters. And so I can fit remove reshores and final patch sealing, and that's 1 wagon. Well, by the time I did this, and sometimes it was combining activities together, and sometimes it was separating them into 2, obviously because your duration was 9, I came up with there's 25 5-day takt time takt wagons. And I needed to know this number of 25. And I'll show you why in a minute. Because once we know that number, we're able to use the formula. And the formula over here is pretty telling. And this comes from Marco Biniger and Janos Louis. Takt wagons, which we just figured out, plus takt zones, which you already guessed on, multiplied by the takt time, which we know in a macro is 5, equals the duration. So we're able to use this calculator to find out if we are on track for the macro. Now this is where I'm going to blow your mind. If you can get through this first sections and understand it, you are home free, my brothers and sisters. So the deal here is, I've got to know that my macro level takt plan is responsible and has the right end date, so that later when I create my norm level takt plan, I can go faster and create buffers in the sequence. If you don't do that, you're going to be in trouble, because then the owner's going to be focused here, won't give you buffers, and you'll enter into a crash landing. So in simplification, your promise and your target. I won't go through it in too much detail other than to mention in the book on page 35, we have really good definitions of macro level takt plans and norm level takt plans. And in these plans, you can see that the macro is your 5-day overview that really covers the strategy for the whole project, and your norm level production plan is literally your target. It's based off of a pull plan, and this is what you're actually going to do out in the field from a tactical standpoint. So you might be asking yourself, how do we know that we have the right macro level plan to do that? Well, once again, we've created an awesome calculator for you. This is called the macro calculator. And I do want to go ahead and point out that inside the Excel template over here, which is where I'm going to take you right now, we have this, and it's called the macro calculator. And you just run over here and you can experiment with it, okay? But let me tell you what it's all about. If you plug in 25 takt wagons, which was what we found out in our little packaging, 3 zones, which is what we wanted based off of our builder guess, and a 5-day takt time based on that's what macro level takt plans are, then you'll see the calculator runs different zoning scenarios. Okay, and what it does is it says if you change to a different zone, you would have a different number of wagons. But what we've done here is we've marked out, and we've grayed out everything else. We've marked out the only real viable options. We want to be between 35% realized flow potential and 50% realized flow potential. I will explain that later, but the bottom line is that's the speed of your project. We want to be, let's say that you have a speedometer 0 to 100. You want to be between 35 miles per hour and 50 miles per hour on your speedometer. That is a good, reasonable, historical, and statistical speed for the macro level takt plan, okay? And once you come in here and you're like, oh my gosh, 3 was not within the range. It was only 29% realized flow potential, and it's not an option, meaning NAO, and it lists here as NAO. Then you're like, oh my gosh, I'd better choose like 5 zones, which is actually what the team did. And what you can see over here is that now it says if you choose 5 zones, you would have 15 wagons, 5 takt zones, and a 5-day takt time. This is what the old non-correct sequence would look like. This is what your new macro level sequence and phase would look like. And so this is, this one down here, the correct one. Now at this point, I've probably confused you, which is great, because if you're confused, you are about to learn something. If you're frustrated, you're about to have a breakthrough. Let me explain it like this. And I'm going to do this 2 different ways so I can try and capture all the different learning types. When you do a first macro pass on a fixed 5-day takt time, it's a guess. It's your best guess. Then when you put it into your calculator on a fixed 5-day takt time, you will adjust your zone count and how many work packages and takt wagons you have based on the calculator. Now it's a final. Now it's a promise. Now it's data. Then later, when we go to the norm, which is your production plan, your tactical production plan, you will adjust your takt time and your zone count and your work packaging. But since the macro is fixed on a 5-day takt time, it's everything but the takt time that adjusts. Let me show you what this looks like in a visual. The first guess of 3 zones had the project finish way late. You wouldn't have won the proposals. It's not reasonable. Once you plug it into the calculator, you get a new overall phase duration, again on a fixed 5-day takt time. And you can see if the amount of work, these smaller activities right here, actually decrease in duration because you have more zones and they're spread out more, then it's going to narrow and the work will fit into less wagons. That's why the first was 25, the second was 15. But now you have a great macro level promise because we ran it through the calculator. And then later when you pull plan and identify your target with the norm, guess what? Yep, you guessed it. You have buffers, ladies and gentlemen. This is the genius of the Takt Production System in action. And the last thing that I want to say here while I'm here is probably my main point, is that if you look at every scenario as we're optimizing, and we colored this with purple, the trade has a certain amount of time, same time, maybe even a little bit more. We never, ever take time from trades. Ever, ever. Okay? If you can visualize this, this is about how complex it gets. But now that we know that we are in a 5-day takt time, but we want 5 zones, then what you do here is you will say, instead of saying, hey, right here, this is 3 zones, you'll plug in 5, which will give you new durations. And then you can plug those in and start packaging wagons again. And if you did this in Excel, you would find out you needed 15 wagons, just like the calculator showed you. Okay? And now you have a new base, and you can create your macro level takt plan. Oh my goodness, we have an activity over here. Let's go ahead and jam out and make sure that we can get this done. You will see a really neat area down here, and we have some really cool instructions for you. So professors, company leaders, teachers, whoever's doing this, at this point we're going into the assignment. What I want you to do, please, and I'm going to go ahead and just draw in here like I did last time, know how many zones you have to start with your macro. In this case, it's 5 because we did the calculation. Down here, to make it easy for you, you're welcome. We have the durations for the stickies already plugged in here. And so like if I have 5 zones, I already have the stickies, and if I zoom in, it already has their duration here ready to go. So I literally, if I'm using Miro, can, and I'll put this back here in just a minute, but I can pull this up, out, over, and take it wherever I want to go because it's already ready to go. Okay, super genius. The second thing is package them into a 5-day takt time. Let me show you how this is to be done. So over here on the left, we have a typical representative zone size, which we've already identified. We're in the macro, so we're on a 5-day takt time, and we need to start to package these activities. So this isn't what I mean is an exact science. You're going to use some builder wisdom here. In the actual file, if you ever want to select some of these items and make sure that it's locked, you certainly can do that. I'm not going to do that at this point, but if you are going to package these, go ahead and grab, like, let's say the first stickies here. Okay, so I'm going to copy those and I'm going to paste these up here right now. Well, you can select these in multiple different ways, but remove reshores would definitely be 1 day. Final patch sealing, that would probably be after removing reshores. And so we've got 2 days on this, so I'll copy that sticky down, right? Sweep floor, yeah, we probably want to do that the second day. Can probably run something concurrent, right? So, yep, refresh control lines. Oh, yeah, sweeping the floor is not going to take that long. We can probably run these concurrent, so that's super fine, okay? And then layout walls, okay? So layout walls would then come in here and be on day 5, all right? Now, let me just keep going just for a little bit to show you some things. Install fire sprinkler would move to the next week, okay? But there's 3 of them. And so let's do 1, 2, 3 days here, okay? And then you look at install priority walls, including electrical and comm rooms. Okay, perfect. So this one, if I move this down here, would fill up the rest of the week. Now this is accidentally working out for me. It doesn't have to work out like this. Let me show you this. Then I do install overhead mechanical duct. Well, when I do this one, on the next takt time, that's 5 days. That's 5 days, homie. Like, we are good to go. That's going to take 5 days. So everything's fitting perfectly into a 5-day takt time, but that's not real life. It's not always going to happen that way. Now let me do something to trip you up just a little bit. Let's do the next 2, okay? And let's move these over here and move over. So when I do this, okay, and I'll click off and then move this over here to the end, okay? This is what happens. If I copy this, because this is 2 days, and then I copy this, this is 2 days, okay? Do I start to move other work in here, and I'll say at random, probably not at random, or do I go ahead and create what's called a buffer inside the sequence. I, Jason Schroeder, would create a buffer. I like to mark them in blue because it makes me happy. And literally reset the takt time for takt wagon number 5 over to the first day. And I'm not going to try and move anything over here. Here's the point. If somebody's working overhead, don't work below. Don't do it if it's unsafe. Don't do it if it's not natural. Think through the operation. And one thing I want to say, you're going to want 5 to 20% buffers inside the sequence. So the assignment here is, ladies and gentlemen, is you'll keep packaging all the way to the end, and you'll find out, hey, where did I end? Probably you're going to finish at the 15 wagons because that's what the calculator and your packaging effort showed you. If you go a little bit more or a little bit less, that's fine, not a big deal. But what I want you to do by the time we're done, and this is the end of the exercise, is I want you to tell me how many zones you have. So in this example, we got 5 zones for the macro, and over here we're going to list 5, okay? Then what I want you to do is list how many wagons. In this case, you'll probably end up with 15. And then what I want you to do when you're done with the sequence is count how many buffers we have throughout, divide it by the overall total, and give me a percentage. If you ended up with 7% buffers, that's between the 5 and 20 range. That's well researched from research papers, okay? If you're less than 5, you're probably too conservative. If you're over 20, you probably have, no, actually that's conservative. That's too conservative. If you're less than 5, it's too aggressive. So you want to make sure that this data is tracking. So if you're like, yeah, 5 zones, 15 wagons, 7% buffer, literally if I was your professor or teacher in the company, I would literally come over here and give you a smiley face because you followed it. If you were under 5% buffer or over 20%, I would know that you didn't complete this properly. Now, I'm not trying to make fun of you. I'm just saying that that's key. To finish this off, confirm it's safe, natural, and justified. Run any concurrent activities that are natural based on what you want. Shoot for 5. You can shoot in the macro for 5 to 10% buffers, but really the range is 5 to 20%. And then fill out your zone, wagon, and buffer table like I showed you up here. Okay, now that is the assignment, and it's all right here in your activity area. But there's something else that I want you to do. When you get done with this and you've checked with your students, or you're a student and you've checked each other, I want you to create titles, okay? And this title, let me be a little bit dramatic here. I'm not going to type in, remove resource and fire patch ceiling and blah, 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 blah. Nope, I'm not going to do that, okay? I'm going to keep it simple. Remove resource, final patch ceiling, sweep floor layout walls. This really sounds to me like floor preparations, okay? So that's pretty awesome. Then the next one is fire, sprinkler, and priority walls. So I would just say sprinkler and walls, right? You're doing a summary. Now, the reason that I want you to do that is so you can now go into your macro-level takt plan and actually do a little fun experiment. So I want you to come over here, full macro before review. Got a nice little example here, not a big deal. You can either copy this area, or you can go over here into takt elements and copy information from here. But for me, myself, I almost thought of the movie Me, Myself, and Irene. I'm going to go ahead and copy this in here. And what I'm going to do is start to experiment with creating a macro-level takt plan. And I do want to say here real quick, this is left in here for you as an example. And you can see the 5 days here in the 15 wagons because we care. Okay? You can come over here to the right. You can extend the timeline. You can go over here and do the full macro where there's more of a timeline. You can do anything you want here, but I'm just telling you the basic mechanics of this. You saw and I'll go ahead and pop over here. Our first wagon was called floor preparations. I'm going to go ahead and do floor preparations. Then our second one was sprinkler and walls. I can type in sprinkler and walls, right? This is a summary for the wagon. And what you can do is you can simply, once you're done with all this, go down and highlight 1 through 15, hit Control-C for copy, and then when you come here to paste, you paste special, transpose, okay? Then you can hit Control-C copy, second zone, third zone, fourth zone, fifth zone, okay? And then you can start to see how the takt plan is created. Now, a couple of things here real quick, and I'll go ahead and use my drawing tools as a basis here. You can, in this example, if you're a company leader, professor, whatever, extend the timeline. You can have them final format the legend. You can have them add zones. You can have them add a start milestone, an end milestone. You can have them add the logistics drawing. You can add whatever you want. You can add a title above this. But for the purpose of keeping this training simple and quick on this video, all I need you to do is do the legend and see what it looks like, okay? Because I want you to make the correlation of how these Excel templates are created. Now, there isn't currently on the market a macro-level takt planning software that does this for you automatically. In the meantime, we'll use Excel. One of these days it will exist. I want you to have this skill in Excel. And what you can do is take this as far as you want, but I want you to understand the basics of how your macro-level takt plan is created, and I want you to know how you got the right number of zones, how you got the right number of wagons, and the fact that when you're doing this, it's really the combination of a milestone, your different phases, your interdependence ties, and then running that all the way through to where you finally get to your substantial completion date at the end, and this is your overall strategic plan. I think this is brilliant. I freaking love this stuff. I get stoked about it every time. So that's the assignment, and I want you to at least get that visual, and everything is right here ready to go for you, and I really hope you do well with it. So we'll go ahead and move on from here, and I'll take you the rest of the way. But this is a really good spot for you to go ahead and pause the class and make sure you do that assignment, or make sure the assignment is clear. Okay, for all of you university professors or company leaders or instructors out there, once you do this assignment and plug it into Excel, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. Simply basic. Not too complex. You don't have to worry about if it's done perfectly. Obviously, we want the timeline up here on the top, a nice legend, the zone maps if we can get them, for 5 zones, not 3, remember, because we made the adjustments, with the little isolated vertical flows. A milestone, you can do it for the overall project like we have it, or just for the phase, either one. Holidays in here if it applies, a phase summary, any other milestones you want, and then obviously the train, and it's a single train, the train itself in the macro level view. So that's where we should be. Here's my assumption. We can get more in depth. If you ever want to do that, join us on the Takt Production System course that we do virtually. We take this even farther. But for now, I want you to have these base and core competencies and have people really think in a time by location format. We all know that once we do the packaging, now we can actually create our legend down here, which we show in the book on page number 39, and then we can transfer that into an actual takt plan. This is what it would really look like if you took it all the way. And we, like I said, just did that little segment. I hope you're really happy with that. And then did a little bit of an adjustment here to our zones with the work density analysis. And one thing I want to point out here that's really important in takt planning is that we don't really care if the zones are colored, but if you are going to color the zones, then leave the center clear or opaque. We really want the wagons to be the predominant item that has the color, and we really want roadblocks and constraints to really show up with orange and red. So let's go ahead and continue. If you are going to take this all the way, then you will follow the takt planning formatting guide that's in the book on page number 41, and then also on page number 42, okay? Now, I'm not going to take you through these in depth myself. The bottom line that I want to say is that you really need to make sure that it's complete and that you have the minimum requirements. If you're like, hey, Jay Money, we do want to follow this and use this as a guide or a test, then pause the video right now with these 2 guides, please. I want to do a quick little activity here, and basically on my screen, and you can play with this on your own Miro board because you're copying this obviously. A takt plan is really the combination of milestones, which you can see right here at the beginning, one-off activities, right? And you can see we have some one-off activities here in the production plan. All right, so I call it, because of Todd Sabell, I don't call these schedules, I call them production plans. But a macro-level takt plan is a strategic production plan. A norm-level takt plan is a tactical production plan. So I'll call it a production plan, but we are in the macro, right? So we have one-off activities here. The phases and zones are your train tracks, right? So these are the tracks or the locations that the train of trades will flow through. Then you have the trains that look like this that flow through the phases and zones. We will have interdependence ties or dependence ties that connect phases together. Secondary flows like procurement that feed the train, and then your critical chain, or what we call a path of critical flow. And what I want to make sure that everybody understands is that a takt plan is simply the combination of those, and you could add buffers if you want. I'm assuming buffers are in the category of one-off activities. So when you combine all of that together, you really have this beautiful overall macro level strategic plan. And oh my gosh, let me go ahead and do this real quick. What I like to do, and we'll cover this just a little bit later, is be like, okay, how are we going to start? How long does that take? Hey, is there any way that we could speed this up by designing to the work package, or by speeding up the activity without rushing and pushing and panicking labor, right? Is this transition correct over here? Is this at the right line of balance? Can we move this phase forward and start sooner based on the structure? Like, you can come through and start like literally tearing this apart from a strategic standpoint and really make some great decisions. So let me take you over here to this next page, page number 43. And in page number 43, I want to make this point. And this is probably one of the most important points. Jason, why do we do macro level takt plans? Because it creates our promise. Okay, what's the difference between the macro and the norm? The norm is your production target. Why are they different? Because the norm has buffers and it has the right number of zones. Well, Jason, isn't this the two different schedules? Isn't this something you preach against? It's the same schedule or production plan going two different speeds, and there's no contract anywhere, and I want you to really pay attention to this, that disallows us from going faster than our original target, especially since it has the same trades, the same sequence, and it's the same plan. So this is very important to understand. Now, I'm going to take you to something that I think is really, really cool here, and that I did as a part of our internal training here at Lean Takt. Let me go ahead and show you this. Let me talk to you about the difference here. A macro-level takt plan, which we've already seen, and you can see the path of critical flow here. This is your builder plan. We need curiosity and critical thinking. This is an art form, okay? This is done either with Wagons in a summary or just with a shaping sketch, but it's basically a macro and it shows your overall strategy, right? And why this is important is because you can look at any areas where you might have bottlenecks, adjust your zoning to make sure it's correct, and then look at areas where there might be bottlenecks where you can design to the work package. So this is for seeing on one page, being experts at gaining buffers in time, asking the right questions, and point the client to strategic decisions. Now let me take you down here to the norm. This is where it's in the day by day and it's optimized and it has buffers. This is an engineering plan, and you must have discipline and understand process or process science, right? This is tactical. This is not strategic. This is where you implement the last planner system, you align your work in progress, you maintain your rules of flow. This is basically what you need to keep up to date. This is how you follow the last planner system, keep the rules of flow, and you prevent variation. Now, let me talk about the difference here, and I have a couple of sketches. I like to go from the macro to the norm. So if the macro was the red, and then the norm is symbolized by the orange lines, you're able to gain buffers. This is where you promise your slow speed versus your fastest speed, okay? Pretty soon, the industry hopefully they can just go right into, in some cases, the norm. And if you do that, that's where you take your fastest speed and you compare it to your slowest speed, and you actually have to add buffers at the end to get your promise. One of these days, we should be able to take your norm and just add buffers, right? And understand what the end date is. But really, right now, we're using the macro to set the target. And I say old and old because this is kind of old thinking. In the future, when everybody understands respect for people and the need for buffers, we can simply do this. So hopefully this little sketch helps you out here. I really enjoyed it. There's definitely a difference between your strategy and your tactics inside your overall plan. So this is an image that Kate updated in the recent book on page number 49. It's quite remarkable. I really enjoy it on page number 49, where you have your macro-level takt plan to set your promise. Then you pull plan phase by phase. And guess what? If you have your macro, you don't have to stress about going too fast. Just pull plan naturally phase by phase when you have trade. Then you're able to create your production plan up to the milestone and gain buffers, filter out the look ahead and be able to make work ready and see and remove roadblocks, and create a weekly work plan from the filter. You don't have to waste trade partners' time. It's already there. Make adjustments as you want. But there's two key things. These plans, as I'm showing them to you, have flow and vertically align to milestones. It's quite remarkable. And so at the end of all of this, like I've said before, we're able to create look-ahead plans and weekly work plans. And by the way, both of those, we have formats here taken from High Street Ventures that you can look at and understand what the end product of all of this actually is. And then actually make day plan boards for your workers out in the field. So it's quite remarkable. And I hope you're following along and really enjoying the content. Now, let me say here from an optimization standpoint that when you are looking at your macro and norm level takt plan, you can have a certain number of zones and then speed it up. So I created some images here for you that are now in the book that I want to show you. Your macro level takt plan will have your contractual promise and its own path of critical flow. Once you create your norm, let me show you the difference between the purple and the green. The green is actually your path of critical flow or your critical chain for the norm. And now you have that target and you've gained those buffers. You should also have a backup, right? What if your norm goes haywire and you have a delay or some force majeure type thing or, a problem that always happens? If you really need to throw in a Hail Mary, instead of asking trades to hurt themselves, do another zoning strategy that will actually help you to recover entirely. And again, it's all possible because of the calculator. One thing I really want to make clear is this image right here. If you have your macro and you see this, we have the current phases, milestones throughout, substantial completion, final completion. You have your overall strategy. All you have to do is say, we need detail the next phase out, right? So as you're starting to eat into or work into that new phase, then you pull plan and detail out the next phase out ahead. So if you're a scheduler or a super and you're like, we're currently in this phase, but I don't yet have pull plans in detail for these other phases. Fine. That's fine. We'll get there eventually. Great news. You don't have to stress. As long as you have the macro, you can create and optimize your norm plan within that specific window and then pull plan phase by phase. This is huge for our own people because sometimes our lean takt engineers are like, whoa, we got to go fast and we got to get this done. And they stress, but really they just need to do it bit by bit. So let me go ahead and show you just a quick example here that I absolutely love. This is an actual takt plan. You can see a couple of the different components here. And I know I'm going fast, everybody. I appreciate your patience, right? So we have milestones up here at the top. And then we have procurement. What are the long lead procurement items? And then you can see the path of critical flow running through the phases. You can see the phases themselves, complete with zone maps. Everything's here for the team to analyze. And again, you have a couple of different options. I usually analyze start dates. I analyze transitions. I analyze the line of balance. Is this going fast enough? Actually, let me do that with the arrow. Is this the right line of balance? Can I go faster, right? And then the other thing is, are there ways for me to strategically, this is so good, start sooner because of the transition? Or are there any areas where there are bottlenecks inside the actual system where I can design to the work package and make it work better? So hopefully that makes sense. This is a strategic plan. Imagine you're a director or a general superintendent. How beneficial would that be to have that? Now let me go ahead and finish out with some concepts here that I think you're absolutely going to love. These are all on your Miro board. And explain one more time, because I really want to make sure that this point hits home, that when you have this, you have the ability to target your pull plan dates, your material procurement, and your pre-con meetings. And you're able to validate this because you have a sequence, line of balance, and the milestone, and validate your buffers based on your risk analysis. So I did want to show you a couple of things here that is not repeating content, but it's very important. If you use takt as your base instead of CPM, then you'll have correct milestones. You will have correctly sized pull plans because you're not batching and wasting weeks or months. You will have a norm level production plan that has buffers. Then again, when you filter out your 6-week make ready look ahead, you will have correct flow and be able to make work ready. Your weekly work plan will not have to be made by trade foremen and waste their time. And your day plan and your percent plan complete will be awesome sauce. So again, the pictures, and this is all in the book starting on page 167. In our example, this is the macro. Then we do our calculation to make sure that we go from the macro to the norm. We pull plan. That then creates our sequence. Then we're able to create our look-aheads and weekly work plans, and everything is all happy. Now with this macro-level takt plan, you can create your overall summary in CPM if you have to, based on the takt structure. Here's how I look at it, and I hope you enjoy this. That the CPM is really for the superintendent, PM, and the owner if they need it. But the superintendent and PM are building off of the macro-level takt plan and the norm, and the superintendent and foreman are working off of these deliverables, okay? So the macro and the norm are what you build from. Now, if you have to use CPM, you can do either a phase summary or a sequence summary or an exact replica. I don't recommend that you do the replica down below. But once you have your takt first and then CPM if you have to, you also want to align your procurement to it. Now here's a rule of thumb. If you're aligning to the macro, you need to take your supply chain plus a 10% buffer. If you're aligning it to the norm, it would be less of a buffer. But I want you then, once you have your macro, to actually align your procurement with it, because here are some things that you can do if your procurement delays. If an item runs late, you can help the trades break up submittals, assist the trades, swarm with an internal review, open Bluebeam sessions for concurrent reviews, ask the design team for help, select alternate material types, on and on. I'm not going to take you through all of them because obviously you can read. But the bottom line is, our industry has a procurement problem because we don't track it. And oh my gosh, guess what? If you have the macro, you can track it right away. So when you're doing your material, align your material with a material inventory buffer. In the macro, it's 10%, in the norm, it's less. And make sure that all of your materials are coming on time. And if you do that, you will be safe and you will be able to bring your materials out zone by zone. That's the purpose of this picture. If you bring out materials to the macro or the norm, make sure your legend represents that and your procurement log must represent that as well. Okay? And if we move right along here, the last thing I want you to encourage you to do is to host a fresh eyes meeting. You'll need your takt plan, your zone maps, your norm level takt plan, your trailer layout, your logistics drawings, your procurement log, org chart, and risk and opportunity register if you do this for real. In the board here, I've given you an agenda, but let me go through the steps. Number one, the person presenting for the risk review and the fresh eyes meeting will present what they've done. Then you will take off any optimism and do what's called a poop glasses review. I know it's been a long time since you said that word, but everybody starts to dig in and tear apart the plan. They will redline the crap out of it, okay? And then once you're done that, set a timer for 15 minutes. You can brainstorm, decide on what your plan of attack is, and then publish your findings. The key here is at the end, you want to end up with a risk and opportunity register that has your risks and opportunities, and you fixed your plan to the best of your ability. Now, we've included in here a macro takt development and a norm. We'll do this later in future videos, but these are here to help you really create your plan. Now, one thing that I did want to mention to you down here at the bottom is that there is a timeline for this. So if you really look, and I'll go ahead and draw this for you, if you look, you create your macro-level takt plan like early on in the process. Then you create your norm a little bit later once you have the builders and your trade partners on board, right? So when you actually look at the timeline, it's down here later on in the process, okay? You should at least start that in design development, okay? Now, takt will become your base. And I want to have a little bit of fun here with you and explain that if you have a CPM, that's like stealing time from the trades and creates a hopeless scenario because they are being pushed along a critical path without buffers. If you are using CPM instead of takt, this is what you can expect on your job site. Overburden of trades in too many areas and stacked all in one area. Trades will experience being pulled in so many different directions. I want you on zone 1, zone 3, floor 5, all over the place in a CPM schedule. Takt doesn't do that. CPM crashes activities and says, hey, be here in one area, or add too many crews, or work overtime, or do things that you can't possibly do. And oh, by the way, trades, you get to pay for it. That's what this is like. Trades just literally trying to put out a fire with more money. And if you do CPM, it will always be changing, and there will be chaos everywhere. Literally using a CPM schedule with your contractor is like saying, hey, I want to work with you, and if you don't comply, here's my hitman that will kill you. So this is really the reality of the situation. Now, going back here just a little bit, I really want to make the point that Takt is different, right? Instead of just having a critical path with activities and logic ties and sequence and durations, Takt has activities, logic ties, duration, sequence, and trade flow, and buffers, and strategic logic. And remember, if you want to speed up a Takt plan, you improve your bottlenecks, adjust your zones, design to the work package, implement last planner, and align your WIP. And it's all visually seen here right in your plan. So it's definitely much better than anything else you can find. Okay. So what I want to do here is finish out really strong and explain a couple of things. We have some resources here for you to actually do the Fresh Eyes meeting. You can go to the blog post that shows you how to do it. And we have some really nice schedule questions that you can just click on and go to whenever you want. The point for the macro-level takt plan isn't that it's right the first time. The point is that everybody can see it and make it right. Because if you don't make it right, we've found that if you rush and push and panic a project team, then typically you'll undercut the end duration and you'll finish late. But if you flow and make a complete plan in the Fresh Eyes meeting, then you'll actually target the right duration and finish 1 to 5% earlier. That's typically what we find. Make sure that you review and tear apart your plan. This is what it should look like if it's done properly. I really, really love it. Here, let me make this point. You'll never get to this if you don't first do this. That's super important for us to understand. And let me go ahead and finish up by saying that a takt plan, oh my gosh, this is so good. I've had so much fun with you here. A takt plan is a visual location-based production plan showing work, trade, and logistical flow planned on a rhythm with the appropriate buffers, and it stabilizes the pace of work with a reasonable overall project duration. It's a system that creates stability. Builder capacity, consistent crew sizes, consistent material inventory levels, the ability to find and remove roadblocks, the ability to finish as we go, a solid quality program, right? It's stable. And it's the only planning system that allows workflow, trade flow, and logistical flow, because flow is identified through rhythm, continuity, and consistency. The structure not only enables, but almost forces you to obey Little's law, the law of bottlenecks, the law of the effective variation, Kingman's formula, and Lucy's law, which results in, and this is super important, healthier project durations, good communicated plan, respectful and stable environment, and the ability to gain time in the end. And so let me just go ahead and conclude this. Is this a lot to take in? Yes. Do we have support information for you? Yes. And it's all here on this Miro board for you to use with your instructor. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson about macro-level takt planning. It's all here on the board. I hope you really do well with this and that you'll see us on the norm level takt planning instructional video on We Go.